This Let's Edit with Media Composer tutorial is brought to you by VideoGuys.com, the leading reseller of video editing and production equipment for more than 25 years. And by Boris FX, a leading developer of visual effect plugins, titling, video editing, and workflow tools for broadcast, post-production, and film professionals. Hey everyone, Kevin P. McAuliffe here, and I am back again with another Let's Edit with Avid Media Composer tutorial. And in this lesson, I want to start out a multi-part tutorial series talking about chroma keying. Now, chroma keying is a very common task that pretty much all of us have had to do, at least a few times a year. And the problem is that there's so many little different intricacies when it comes to chroma keying that if you misstep at one of those steps, it can really start to cause problems and make your keys not look the way that you need them to look. Now, in our first lesson, we're actually not really going to talk about keying specifically, but we're going to talk about an aspect of keying that's exceptionally important, and that is garbage matting. Now, much like when it comes to color correction, and I say that every shot requires color correction, whether you think it does or not, when it comes to keying, every shot requires a garbage mat, whether you think it does or not. And in this lesson, I'm going to show you how you can utilize Animat inside of Media Composer to create garbage mats for the SpectraMatte key so that you can get in and get your keys looking as good as they can possibly look. Now, before we go on, I want to remind you that these tutorials are designed to get in and take a very in-depth look at very specific aspects of editing inside of Avid Media Composer. But sometimes you just need to get the information and get yourself up and running lightning fast. Well, if that's the case, head on over and check out my Mac Pro video training series on Media Composer, where Lesson 1 will get you up and running in Media Composer in about an hour. Alright, so let's Command or Alt and Tab into Avid Media Composer. And once we're there, this is the shot that we're going to be working with. This shot comes to us courtesy of Artbeat, so I want to give them a big thanks for the use of this clip in our lesson. You can check them out at artbeats.com. Okay. Now let's talk about garbage mats specifically. Now, why do you need to add garbage mats to your footage? Well, garbage mats, when working with chroma keying, is a way that you can reduce the area that the chroma keyer needs to look at to create the proper key that you need. Now, in this case, if you take a look, this key actually looks fantastic. Not necessarily the key, but the green screen itself. You can see we have great definition between the foreground and the background, but the only issue that I do have is that if you take a look over here on the left and even on the right, the key is a little bit darker over on both the edges as opposed to being closer in the middle. And you'll notice that the darker it gets, the more compression we end up getting as well. So this might run us into a little bit of problems. But we can eliminate a lot of that problems by creating a garbage mat to work with. So let me show you how this is going to work. Now, when creating a garbage mat, I'm just going to come through my footage here. It's important to figure out what is moving and what is not moving in your shot. Okay, now you'll see that our desk and our book, our computer is not moving. So we can get in and create a very tight key or a very tight mat around that and a loose mat around everything else. So let's get in and do that. What we're going to do is inside the effects palette, we're going to head to the keying section and we're going to head to Animat. I'm going to take Animat, we're going to drag it and drop it down onto our shot. I'm just going to zoom back a little bit, okay? And I think I'm going to start somewhere over here to create the loose mat around our talent. I'm just going to zoom back because I need to get in just a little bit underneath our frame here, because when you get to the bottom, depending on how you want to do this, you might very well just want to create a straight line right across the bottom, not worry about any of this area in here and let the keyer handle it. Or we can be specific like I'm going to be and get in and mat all of this out. Okay, so let's do this. What we're going to do is we're going to choose either the poly tool or even the curve tool. For me, I think I'm going to choose the poly tool. I'm going to start right about here and I'm just going to draw loosely around our talent. Okay. Now then we're going to get to the computer. Now I'm going to draw roughly around the rest of our shots here, okay? And I'm just going to speed this up so you don't have to sit through and watch me do the whole thing. Okay, so I think we're good for the purposes of our tutorial. Now I sped that up quite a bit, and again, depending on how precise or how loose you want to do this, you can take as much time as you need to create the garbage mat. Now that I've gone in and created it, you'll see we really haven't left much to the imagination here. The desk is pretty much completely defined except for the little areas in here, and we've left it a little bit loose around our talent because she does move a little bit. She adjusts her pose like that So I want to give her a little bit of space to do that. Now I could get in if I wanted to, and let's just say I came to here and said, okay, what I'd like to do at this point is I'm going to step into effects mode. I'm going to add a keyframe right here. And let's say we wanted to adjust this side of the garbage mat because maybe she shifts a little bit to her left or right. I'm going to come down here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate over here to the effects editor and make sure that I have the reshape tool chosen after we have our mat selected so I can see every point that I've created. And now I can drag that over a little bit and a keyframe will be added so we can actually have this move as she does. Okay, so once we have this the way that we want, I'm actually just going to delete that keyframe there because I don't need it, is we're now going to head back to the effects palette to Spectromat. Now before we do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take our Animat effect here and I'm going to drag it and drop it into my bin, and you'll see why in just a second. Okay, I'm going to remove this effect from our timeline. There we go. And let's take Spectromat. I'm just going to drag it and drop it quick onto our shot. I'm now going to take the Spectromat key color. I'm going to choose right around her. Now this is looking okay except for one problem. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to show alpha. And you'll see we have all these little bits going on over here. Okay. Now to be honest, I could get in and monkey around with the tolerance of the effect, but I really don't want to do that because I already defined a very solid area for the desk that we know that we want to have basically as isolated when we do our key. So how we're going to go about doing this, and what I should do here before I step out of effects mode, is just turn off show alpha so we can see our RGB element here, is I'm going to double click on our clip, and with that clip double clicked on, let's just step out of effects mode here. We're now going to take our Animat effect and I'm going to drag it and drop it down inside of the Spectromat effect. So it's going to be applied before we apply Spectromat. I'm actually just going to step into it just so you can see sort of the progression of this. And I'm going to take Animat, drag and drop down onto our clip so that we isolate the area that we want. Now I'm going to step out, and now Spectromat has been applied. So what's going to happen now when we step in and I say show alpha, you can see that all of that junk is now gone. And we now are only looking at the area here. Now, keep in mind, you're probably wondering, well, why is that area white now instead of black? I'm actually kind of bending the Media Composer rules just a little bit. We really shouldn't be able to do this the way that we're doing it inside Media Composer, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. Okay, so that's why Spectromat's a little bit confused by what's going on. It's because of the stacking order of the effects. But what's important to keep in mind is that with this turned off, you'll notice that all of those bits are gone. Now let me show this to you here again a different way with a red background. I'm going to double click on that clip so that we can remove Animat here. We're going to get those bits back. And let's take this red here and let's just stick it down at the bottom underneath our key. We're just going to stretch that out here. Okay. You can now see over here on the left all those little bits that I was talking about. And you can even see them sort of moving up here. And what's going to happen is that when we apply Animat, all those little bits are going to be gone. Now, here's where things become problematic. What we're going to do is I'm going to take my corner office here. We're going to use that down here. And here's where things become a bit problematic. So, I went and created a very defined garbage mat. Okay, but what if I wanted to get in and soften it up a little bit? Take a look at what's going to happen. I'm going to step into my Spectromat effect so that we can see the garbage mat. I'm going to step back into effects mode. I'm going to select that garbage mat. And what I'd like to do is something very simple. I'd like to soften that up a little bit. Kind of like that. It seems like the perfect idea. Ignore the fact that the desk looks the way that it does for just a second. It seems to be the perfect solution to get in and to create a very soft edge garbage mat for situations that might require it. Here's the problem. What I'm now going to do is step out of the Spectromat effect and take a look at it, and we have this green halo now going on around her because the Spectromat and the Animat don't quite play well together. Now, we're going to talk about what we can do to get around all of this by using third-party tools in an upcoming lesson. But coming up in our next lesson, in our multi-part look at keying, we're going to talk specifically about the Spectromat effect and how you can get in and utilize it on basic green screen shots to give yourself the key that you want without having to leave your Media Composer timeline. Now, as we're wrapping up, I want to remind you that if you're looking for great deals on Avid Media Composer software licenses, subscriptions, and upgrades, use coupon code MC101 for 5% off any purchase at videoguys.com. MC101 is going to be a coupon code that you're going to love because the great team at Boris FX is offering a 10% discount on BCC10 AVX or multi-host licenses, full or upgrades, again using the coupon code MC101. And finally, don't forget that if you have any questions, you have any comments, or you have any tutorial requests, you can send them to me at kevinpmcauliffe@gmail.com. This has been Kevin P. McAuliffe. Thanks a lot for watching.